Imagine your entire career as a student is going to be displayed using one test. You're a fantastic student and you do well in school, but your test score came out poor. You do not know what went wrong, but one thing is for sure, this score now reflects you as a student. Having been a student for quite a while now, these 19 years have been long, standardized testing has been a part of my schooling for years. Since I've graduated high school, I've been able to be the outsider looking in and seeing how these tests truly did cause anxiety and stress on me and my peers. I want to make sure I'm bringing awareness to that. There are three main problems standardized testing brings. Number one, the inability to create a stress-free testing atmosphere in order to accurately test these students. Number two, it creates an influx of shallow learning among many different students. And number three, and most importantly, these tests lack the tools to accurately provide a true picture of a student's academic capability. Think of the perfect testing atmosphere. It might look a little different for everyone. I know mine for sure is somewhere really quiet where it's like super warm and I don't have to wear like 50 layers of clothing to stay warm. Now imagine the different testing environments that these students are subjected to. There are many different students that don't have nice and loving homes, and so they come from troublesome homes where their mornings aren't good, they're not fed, they're not given, they're not sleeping well, and then they have to go in and take these very long tests that are supposed to reflect them. From my personal experience, I had a time my junior year where I was late to my test because I went to start my car and it would not start. So obviously I cried and I was very frustrated. But when I finally made it to the test, I was pretty shaken up. I couldn't concentrate and I couldn't remember any of the material. That is just, the bare minimum. It's 10 times worse for some of these other students. Overall, I felt like a complete idiot, and my test scores obviously reflected that. And my grades showed otherwise, though. I typically made all A's with very few B's every now and then, and so seeing that test score really hurt my confidence, to be honest. So it doesn't. It's not fair. It creates an issue. Testing atmosphere has always been one of the most obvious issues, but obviously there are others. So let's say the environment is ideal. Got the perfect testing environment. Previously, I stated that shallow learning can be created with these standardized tests, and an obvious question might be, what is shallow learning? Shallow learning involves memorizing test material without actually understanding. These students aren't going, some of the students who are going and taking these tests just to take a test and do well aren't actually getting the information that they need. These deeper learners, however, they're actually taking time to reflect and to understand the material and therefore are leaving and remembering this material for years to come. According to a study done by the Journal of Education Psychology, actively engaged students, which are the deep learners, asked questions and try to connect present learning to their past learning. However, the ones who wanted to do well on a test, so the shallow learners, just copied down answers, guessed, and skipped over difficult parts. Higher scores were found on the shallow learners. The issue is obviously that these kids they're doing well on their tests. That's great, that's fantastic, but what are they leaving with? They're leaving with nothing but a good test score. They don't know the material. I guarantee you if they test them 3 years from now, those scores would dramatically drop because they're not leaving with anything beneficial. They're not leaving with the material that they're supposed to have. That creates a bad atmosphere for these kids. It also gives them a false sense of, I know what I'm doing, I'm doing well, I'm good, but they're gonna fall because they actually don't know the material. Finally, overall, a student's true academic capability is not being shown using these tests. Let's, for example, use all of these crayons. Now, these crayons right here, and this represents the student population. But you see, we have this student who's a very, very, very good writer, but sucks at grammar and mechanics, can't punctuate for anything, and all they needed is for someone to look over their paper and be like, yeah, this is what you need to fix, and they fix it. However, they failed their English portion of their test because most of it was grammar and mechanics. So now they're out. We have this kid who, he is really good with some portions of math. However, they're only testing on some parts of the subjects in math. So now he's stuck thinking that he's bad at math and he just wants to give up. So he's out. We have the kid who can't memorize. He tries his best. He does really well in class. He's able to answer questions, but the material doesn't stick. He has a bad test score, so now he's out. So now you're left with a small group of students who do really well on this test, but forget the other ones. According to a study done by Harvard University, standardized testing actually increases dropout rates by 10%. This also lowers a student's self-worth. These students don't feel like they're worth anything because They're not doing well. Obviously, they can't do it, so why try? Obviously, these are extreme cases, however, the impact is just the same. So what can be done? A solution might be a performance-based assessment. We cannot ignore the fact that we need to show a student's capability in some way to make sure that they're understanding the material. An interesting approach used by the New York Performance Standards Consortium, which consists of 28 schools using that performance-based assessment, they are relying on teacher-created assessment. Therefore, they're looking at presentations. They're looking at tests designed specifically catered to each student. The district saw a higher rate in graduation, as well as improved college success rates. Ultimately, there may never be one perfect solution. However, we must all do our part in raising up issues with testing in hopes for a better future for these students. My hope is that one day we find that perfect solution. We got to find that perfect solution in order to avoid causing unnecessary stress on these really good students, each and every one of them, who want to strive to just do their best, even when facing an unfair circumstance.